Okay, good morning, dear friends, and welcome to the Conscious Contact Big Book Study of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is, I'm an alcoholic. My name is David. Hello, everybody. And Merry Christmas Eve to one and all through all parts of the world. And we're going to start off with our friend Elza is going to read for us the AA preamble. And there we go.
Thank you. My name's Ailsa and I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We're self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Elsa, thank you so much. And so now I'm going to ask everybody to join me in a moment of silence for this still sick and suffering alcoholic in and out of our rooms, followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Um, Thank you. As everybody knows, we're a line by line big book study. If anybody, I don't know if anybody's here for the first time, but what that line by line designation means is that we go through the text very slowly and line by line, just like it says. And by doing that, what I have found is that the book really opens up to me in a way that had just eluded me. Because previously, probably like a lot of you, previous to doing this process, my experience with the big book was I would either go to it when I was directed to for a specific thing, or I would be in big book meetings where we would read a chapter at a time, and I always felt a little bit like it was like reading, like trying to drink from a fire hose. There was so much coming at you, but when we slow down, for me, the real spiritual significance of the book and what the authors are trying to say to us comes through for me. So, the other thing that we do is we break the text down, or we categorize it into 5 categories. And these will be in the chat, but I'll just show them to you. And regulars have seen this multiple times: questions, directions, and explanations, promises, warnings, and history. And the colors are how I choose to highlight it so that it really turns the big book into a powerful, for me, a powerful tool in just informing my own sobriety and in sharing the message with others. And especially when I'm sponsoring people, it really unlocks the power of the book to do a lot of the, or if not most of the heavy lifting when sponsoring other people. Our format is I'm going to talk on the text until approximately 7 o'clock, and then we'll open it up for comments and discussion and your thoughts and so forth. As everybody knows as well, the meeting is, it is being recorded, audio only. We stay within the traditions, and only my parts get recorded. So when we switch to discussion, I turn it off. And we post that on YouTube, so there's an archive there. We are just a FYI, a little warning. We are a little behind in posting because we ran into some technical difficulties. They've been corrected, but now I have to go back and correct what hasn't been posted yet. So on to today's text. We are in chapter 6, into action. We are on page Excuse me, I said 77 before I was mistaken. I meant, or hold it, no. That is correct. We are on page 77. We're going to be beginning with in the middle of the page with the paragraph that starts, "We don't use this as an excuse." And I just want to sort of summarize where we are today, and I want to share with you as we go into this sort of two themes that popped up as I was really looking at this reading today. So in today's reading, the authors they take us more deeply into the process of completing our ninth step amends. Well aware that most alcoholics have fear and reservations about making amends, and specifically making amends to everyone they may have harmed. The authors now take on some of our most strenuous objections. The process begins by detailing how we should go about making amends to those people we still hold animosity towards, or who may have harmed us more than we harmed them. They make it clear we should not shy away from these types of amends. Whether the other individual is receptive to our efforts or not, we must be completely willing to approach them and make restitution for our wrongs, our part in this matter. We're cleaning up our side of the street, while, and again, the text is quite clear on this, we ignore their side of the street. In detailing this in similar scenarios, what we see are two important themes. And I think that these themes would fall into the category of what I've been become aware of as a sideways direction, which you see a lot of in the book. And what I mean by sideways direction is that rather than Bill or the authors saying, "Hey, this is what you need to do," and it does that in certain parts, but for I would say a majority of the directions that the big book is attempting to tell us come to us in a sideways manner, meaning here's what this other person did, or here's what we do in general. But what we see in there is a model of how we should conduct ourselves and how we should move through the world. And so there are two of those themes or principles that come forward in the reading today. The first is it's clear that we have a responsibility to set right. I mean, there's no doubt that we have a responsibility to set right the wrongs we have done others and to repair as many of our relationships with people in the world as possible. However, what we see is that the primary relationship we are repairing is not our relationship with other people, but our relationship with God. And I'm going to talk more about that when we get into the text. This notion that it's through our relationships with people that we actually repair our relationship with God. The second theme is related to this, and it in terms of being a God-centered individual. One of the things that it becomes clear on is, and it's something that I missed and or conveniently ignored for years, is that remember last week we talked about we don't lead with the chin. We don't just go out to the world and aimlessly identify ourselves as a recovering person who is leading a spiritual way of life. Because we don't know. At times that could alienate people. However, on the other hand, one of the things it's quite clear about is that we don't avoid or shy away from asserting that identification either. So we don't, in other words, we don't rest at the extremes. We find this, I think, important, vital middle ground in which our identity as a recovered person living a God-centered life is the primary identity through which we move through the world. So, so looking at that, as I said, we're on page 77, and we are in the middle of the page, and we start off, that very first sentence is a warning, because it's so, as we saw in the paragraph before, it's talking about discussing our spirituality with the people we are making amends to. And it offers a bit of a warning. We don't use this, meaning, excuse me, we don't use this, and what they're talking about is the person who may be angry towards us or harmed by our efforts. We don't use that embarrassment or that queasiness as an excuse for avoiding making these amends. We don't use this as an excuse for shying away from the subject of God. And again, there it is, that second theme right up front and center. And again, we're not foolhardy about it, but we are not reticent or embarrassed about it either. When it will serve any, and now the next several sentences are explanation and direction, so they're in green for me. When it will serve any good purpose, we are willing to announce our convictions with tact and common sense. And I went to the dictionary just to be clear, because tact, again, was one of those words. Well, I think we all know what tact means. However, I wanted to find out exactly what it means. And what I found in looking at the dictionary was that it says discernment, which is a fancy way of saying good judgment, discernment and delicate skill in saying and doing exactly what is suitable in a given situation. And I will tell you, it was a long time into sobriety. Well, I don't know if I have tact today, but I can tell you that for a long period in my sobriety, the gap between what came out of my mouth and the standard of tact was pretty broad. There was, you could drive a semi-truck through that gap for me. In other words, I said a lot of things that were not tactful. Anyway, tact and common sense should be our compass points when sharing this. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. And this is all green. It may be that he has done us more harm than we have done him. And though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we are still not too keen about admitting our faults. I'm going to pause there because I just saw another piece or another element of sideways direction. It's assuming, or it's putting out there, that people who have hurt us, we have developed a better attitude towards those individuals. I'm sorry, I have the hiccups. We have developed a better attitude towards those people. And off the top of my head, where I'm thinking that may have happened, if we're lucky, is through not through force of will, not through strength of conviction, but through the actual doing of the fifth step. Because if we remember our 12 and 12, in talking at the end of the chapter on step 5, it says, here's where we first experience, or here's where we may experience forgiveness for ourselves and for other people. So that's where this shift in our relationships with other people starts to change. So, as it says, it may be that he has done us more harm than we have done him. Though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we are still not too keen on admitting our faults. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in the teeth. And that phrase, probably it was more common when people were raised on farms, but I had to look it up because I thought I knew what it meant. When it said take the bit in the teeth, I knew that it had something to do with horses, and I thought it meant we are subservient. You know, it's like we have this bridle in our mouth, and here we go. For those of you who may not be horse people, there we go. And that thing up in the upper left-hand corner is the bit. It's the part of the bridle or the harness that the horse wears. And we take it in the teeth. Now, here's what that means. And it really shifts the meaning of the step for me. The bit that a horse wears goes behind the teeth. And you see where it is now in the horse's mouth. You see that it's like right here. And what they're saying is, when a horse took the bit in the teeth, he actually moved the bit from the back of his or the horse's mouth to the teeth and became less dependent on the rider. They became independent. So the horse, if a horse did not want to pay attention to the rider, they would wait for the rider to let go of the reins, to loosen the reins, and move the bit up into the teeth. So the point is, see, I thought it meant we're subservient to God or the direction. What it means is when we take the bit in the teeth, it means we independently move forward regardless of what our sponsor or anyone else is telling us. Meaning, we take initiative on our own to do the right thing. The world may be telling us to not approach this person. They're going to yell at you. You're going to be worse off. Here, what I would do, I wouldn't say go totally rogue. What I would say is, by taking the bit in the teeth, for me, means that I go into close and trusting counsel with my sponsor. And I follow the direction that my sponsor gives me. Which is what I've even done throughout the last year, especially with amends. It's been critical. So we take the bit in our teeth, and then the next sentence is a reward. It is harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. We go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit. Now, this last sentence, is is direction. We go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret. And then a warning. Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. And what that means for me is that I've got to resolve in practice. What that means for me is I have to resolve every bit of anger, resentment, hurt pride, you name it, before I get eyeball to eyeball with that person. And the reason is because if they balk at my amends, my default setting is I'm going to fall back to my default setting, which is to be resentful and defensive. And I have to neutralize that prior to the amends. I hope that makes sense. Simply we tell him, and then the rest of this page, actually the rest of the paragraph, is direction. Simply we tell him that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. And again, I thought that I knew the definition of utmost. I thought it meant we do our most. We do the most we can do. And I'm glad I looked it up, because it does not mean that. It means the extreme limit or extent. And some of us may remember that there's a word that they use, I believe, 7 times in the first 164 pages to describe the actions of working the step, our commitment to the step. The word they use is drastic. It's drastic. It's extreme. We have done our utmost to straighten out the past. We are here to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so. Never trying to tell him what he should do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the result. And I think it's interesting because it doesn't necessarily assume that the person will be happy or receptive to what we are saying. But the promise that it makes there, I guess, and I labeled that direction, it could actually be a promise as well. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the result. So we'll still feel that we've done the right thing. Now, here's what's interesting I discovered, and this is just something I'm going to do with the next paragraph, because we talk very often about the promises and what we really mean, or what I've sometimes heard in meetings are the 9th step promises, which are over on, I'm jumping ahead here, which are several pages ahead, and on page 83, 9th step promises. However, what I've realized is that there are 2 sets of promises associated with the 9th step. And this next paragraph is completely promise, and it is what I'm calling 9th step promises part 1. So let's see what it says. In 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. Sometimes the man we are calling upon admits his own fault, so feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies sometimes praise what we are doing and wish us well. Occasionally, they will offer assistance. It should not matter, however, if someone does throw us out of his office. We have made our demonstration, done our part. It's water over the dam. And why I believe this is critical, and this to me points to the principle that the relationship we are repairing there is, yes, indeed, it's our attempt to repair that relationship with that individual. And we may or may not be successful, but the relationship we will always repair, and that is primary through this process, is our relationship with God. And the reason that I am kind of hammering on this point was that I lived for years in Alcoholics Anonymous with this kind of operating on this assumption. There's my relationship with all of you and the people in the world, and there's my relationship with God. And without realizing it, I was living by 2 very different sets of standards. Meaning, like, I'll be all spiritual and enlightened with God, and God and I are good. Now, the rest of you, well, I'm just going to deal with you however feels right or convenient for me. And it's all, what I have found is that it's only when my relationships with all of you are really held on a spiritual basis, when I'm conducting myself and holding myself to a high standard of integrity and spirituality, that I really have a relationship of integrity and spirituality with my higher power. I hope that makes sense. And let's see how we got there. I'm going to get to one. We're just going to go one more paragraph and then we'll close it up. The first 2 sentences, it looks like, are direction. Most alcoholics owe money. We do not dodge our creditors. Sorry, 3 sentences, the next one too. Telling them what we are trying to do, we make no bones about our drinking. They usually know it anyway, whether we think so or not. So we let them know. We lead with, we are trying to repair. And we make no bones about our drinking. That doesn't mean we lean on it as an excuse. But I think what's important there is, again, to not be afraid of asserting our identity when it's appropriate. But I think what's really important is because not everyone understands alcoholism, and not everyone is going to, my point is not to educate the world on alcoholism. My point is to dispel any confusion that individual may have about our behavior. Like, why did you act that way? Why did you do that? If they know we have a problem drinking, then it's no mystery. But very often, what I found is that a lot of the damage that I did to people was this: I robbed them of a sense of certainty about my behavior and predictability in my moods and emotions. And I needed to repair for them at least my part of that. So I believe that's why it's saying we make no bones about our alcoholism. And then the next two sentences are promises. Nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory it may cause financial harm. I see that as a promise. You could also call it direction. But that courage comes as a result of the previous step work I've done up to this point. Approached in this way, the most ruthless creditor will sometimes surprise us. And then the next two sentences are direction. Arranging the best deal we can, we let these people know we are sorry. Our drinking has made us slow to pay. Notice what it's saying there. And I think this is an excellent example of what amends versus apology mean. And it does say we tell them we're sorry. But what does it say before that? Arranging the best deal we can. So we are amending the term, as our friend Nikki shared with us last week. We are amending the terms of the contract or the terms of the relationship. We're doing that first. And once we do that, we can express our regret. And we can tell them we are sorry. But we've taken clear action to repair the situation. And then we end with a warning. We must lose our fear of creditors, no matter how far we have to go, for we are liable to drink if we are afraid to face them. And again, I think that speaks to making the relationship with God primary. Because that fear, what it does is it distances me from God and His grace. And with that, I've gone a few minutes over, so I thank you for indulging me. But we've covered a lot there. That's why I just wanted to cover one page. I think that there are some key themes that are important. And so what I'll do now is I'll open it up for you.